Hello again, everybody. This is Konrad, AAA 3D artist and professional game developer working on Fear of Sleep. It's 5 in the morning, which is kind of a sneak peek into the stupid hours you have to, or at least I have to commit to get a project like this running, but we're going to take a little bit of a different approach this week, and it's not going to be a scripted video. I'm just going to show you some screen caps of what I worked on this week and kind of walk you through this segment of the ethos behind stealth gameplay. So let's begin. Like I said, this was an AI focused week. There's a lot of different ways I think AI in games like this can help build tension. There's all sorts of options that you can go with when it comes to a horror experience or a thriller. And in my game, I really want to focus on, at least for the base enemies, to have them feel mindless and relentless and scary. There's kind of a balance that you have to strike when you're making almost a zombie drone, that kind of thing. You don't want them to feel like something that you would fight in a Dark Souls game or a Sekiro or something like that. You want them to feel like automatons. So you do get to this point where if you kind of overdevelop their AI, they start to feel too smart. They start to feel like people rather than monsters. So that was a pretty fun challenge this week, getting them to strike that balance between, is it something that is just boring and too predictable versus something that feels too smart, feels too adaptive, and doesn't feel as murderous as it would if it were just kind of ignoring damage and coming after you relentlessly. So, in this approach, I definitely leaned into that drone, mindless killing machine feel, but had a lot of fun with detection senses and patrolling and things that add a little bit of unpredictability versus predictability for segments that would strongly recommend that you approach in a more stealthy way. I do not like when video games force you into stealth encounters. I think that is a recipe for player frustration. So I'm carefully designing these play spaces so that you are never bottlenecked into a scenario where stealth is the only option. Typically, it will be presented to you in a way where you can risk fighting the enemies. Maybe there's a reward for doing that, but it might be fairly obvious that you are outmatched or outnumbered, and there's probably a different route to go. There's something pretty cool that I've been working on in terms of mechanics that get the player to alert the enemy AI in a little bit more of a grounded to the game way, for lack of a less clunky term. As the robot has different things on his person that either light up or make noise when he performs a certain function, for example, the flashlight. That flashlight has a switch on and a switch off noise. And what's happening here is the flashlight now traces a sphere that, if it's within the hearing radius of the monster will leave its patrol path and move to investigate the noise, And as it's moving to investigate that noise, if there is something that the player does that triggers the enemy to pinpoint their location, that's when that murderous zombie AI kicks in. So, for example, if you're hiding and you can't see because it's too dark, but you know there's an enemy in the corner, do you risk crawling through the darkness and possibly encountering another enemy, which you can't see, that is going to start dealing damage to you and probably give you a nice little jump scare? Or do you turn on the flashlight, try to illuminate the corner that you're headed towards, knowing that that noise could very well possibly wake something in the darkness? Things like that are really fun to toy around with, really fun to kind of place where the enemies are, where they might hear you, where they might see you. And with this AI system, it's very modular in terms of where the enemies are pathing, the types of behavior that they can perform. And when it comes to other enemy types, there will be opportunities to make enemies less drone and zombie inspired and more intelligent, less predictable. For instance, Unreal has support for environmental context and awareness for AI. So we could program an enemy that deals maybe a little less damage and has a lot more health, but instead of pathing until it sees you, maybe this enemy always knows where you are, and it comes out of the shadows to attack you, and once it takes damage, that could set a timer that would then switch the AI behavior to seek out places in the world that it could hide in darkness. So maybe you have to use your flashlight to find this monster. And when you do, then you can get a few free hits in before it runs away. But if you're stuck searching for him and you don't see him, then he'll appear from the shadows to deal damage to the player. The system in which I implemented this week for the basic AI is definitely scalable in a way where I have kind of put pins in certain spots that I know I can go back to when I want to flesh out the enemy chess pieces. And I think that video games, especially video games in this ilk, are most effective when you have a stack of simple chess pieces that you can arrange on the board that interact with your character in meaningful ways, rather than having one or two AI with a lot of depth. The potential for smarter AI is something that's really exciting, but ultimately what I wanted to land on was AI that, if I had to stop there, I have something that is complex enough to build tension with the player and move them through the game in a way that is meaningful and doesn't feel too repetitive. Now imagine this scenario. You're walking in darkness. You know that the enemies respond to your flashlight, but you also know you need to see. You turn on the flashlight, and you're lucky enough that the switch didn't make a noise within the monster's radius. But now, this creepy, greasy, bloody, gangly creature is standing in front of you, blocking your path. Now what do you do? First of all, there's the tension of point A to point B with an obstacle. There's the visual interest of cast shadows and point of interest being illuminated by a cone of focus with a flashlight. The contrast and affinity between the sheer darkness, the industrial vibe of the environment, and something that is disgusting and organic. And then also the option to explore different scenarios in which maybe circumventing this monster is possible. So the atmosphere has built, the player interest has peaked, and now you're faced with decisions that ground you in the environment and make you a little more empowered to interface with this world. That is just the tip of the iceberg, kind of a scratch on the surface of how I want enemies to be handled. And I gotta say, I'm really excited about the direction of this stuff, and I think sooner rather than later, you guys will start to see how it's all coming together. Now again, I want to reiterate that we have a Discord stood up for the game in which a ton of people from the industry have already been hanging out in or lurking or whatever. And if you drop by in there, then I will consider you a supporter of the project, because I'm not standing up a Patreon or anything like that. What I'll do is, all you have to do is introduce yourself in the general chat, say, hi, my name is blah, 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 just give your username, maybe share a little bit about why you're interested in this game or something special about you, and I'll throw you up in the acknowledgements, because in my view, we're all in this together. If I was doing this in a vacuum, it wouldn't be as fun, because I love getting to interact with all these cool people, and we don't bite, so just come on in and hang out, and you'll get a lot of different updates about the game. Thank you guys so much for checking this out and tuning in once again. I'm going to have some more content for next week, and just stay tuned to see what we're going to be focusing on. Again, I really appreciate any feedback you give, so if there's anything you want to throw in the comments about how these are presented, what else you would like me to focus on. I'm not any way a YouTuber. I've got no functional marketing skills or anything like that, so this isn't like a content channel. I see a lot of indie developers that they start with devlogs, and then they start to see that, oh, maybe it's a little bit more convenient for me, or a little bit more lucrative off the bat to just build a big channel where people are watching the thing and being entertained by the content that you're providing. And I'm not a content creator in the sense of YouTube. I'm a game developer and an artist, so this is just to get eyeballs on the project, bring people over to the Discord to get them updated on it, and have a lot of fun. So once again, thank you, and I will talk to you next week.